I'm here with Kirk Bennion, and he's the design manager for the C7 exterior. It's been a long time coming. What were your real goals with the design of the C7?
Well, within this car for us was all about looking forward, moving forward. We clearly wanted to differentiate this car into a next generation, and that meant departing from some traditions that we might have held in the past on the car, or if we really wanted to break some of those given traditions and really strive for a compelling new car.
Did you want to make a bigger break because the C6 was in production for so long?
One of the reasons for the big break would be that because the architecture has been enhanced, it's gotten better with this. We are wider, we're a little lower, maybe a touch longer, and all it's good for the drama of the car. But within that architecture, that overall footprint is still somewhat very similar in that. So in doing so, we wanted to work even harder on making the design different so that we do have more separation from the previous generation.
What are some of the key design details that you're really proud of on this car?
Well, I would tell you, just starting with the side view, in that we really felt that we've had the basket handle since 1978 steady on the car. We really wanted a new DLO graphic that would help transmit this being a new car from a block away, or a football field away. You would see this and know that it was a new car. The other thing in the body side, having a new sculptural language applied to the car, something that we haven't seen before on Corvette. And in doing so, we created this surface where it goes from a dramatic round, convex, concave shape to a very razor-like edge. The contrast between those forms is very extreme, very different for Corvette.
Well, I see those sharper lines on the car, and it's, I think, a much more exciting looking car. But was there a conflict between coming up with that design and still meeting aerodynamic numbers?
I would tell you, for the surface that we have, in getting to the aerodynamic numbers, it's really about optimizing the key areas. What we talked about on the body side with its contours and its deep sections and that, those were a little bit more neutral to the aerodynamic requirements. They're still sensitive, but it's not like the front end where the front is absolute on how you turn the air around the corner and how you manage the airflow through the grille. And of course the back end of the car is real critical as to where and how the air departs off the car. But the body side, we got a little bit more license with that. And here again, without hurting the car and helping the car, we will do some expressive things.
Well, speaking of aerodynamics, I see several new openings on the car. There's a hood opening, there's a couple of air scoops on the side. Are those just styling razzmatazz, or do they actually do anything?
Well, this car, as you know, contemporary Corvettes are all about getting a low drag coefficient. We'll talk to a huge reduction in lift on this car as well, but also part of the responsibility of this car is now managing airflow in a different means. In that, we've reorientated the radiator. The CRFM is now tipped forward, much like our race car. So we're actually ducting and plumbing the air out over top of the hood, which is very functional in reducing lift and managing our air there. Some of the other things that you'll see is that the brake cooling now is integrated into the front grille, into the outboard corners. This is a much cleaner location. You're getting the air off a higher pressure area, so you're able to channel even more air to the brakes. And then the rear quarter inlets is a very new inlet for us on this car. We're actually taking in air to cool the differential and transmission. The thing we like about having those inlets back there is they really help play up this car, the architecture of this being a front mid-engine layout. And now having this long quarter line and then this inlet up there tends to give it just a mid-engine-esque kind of appeal. But still, like I said, it's an optimized front mid-engine kind of layout. But all those inlets were carefully modeled in, carefully scrutinized, and I mean, no holes too big, no holes too small kind of thing. They all have very dedicated targets in that. So it's kind of it's a third responsibility for the aero part of this car.
So you're saying that the connection between the racing effort in this car is actually genuine in some areas?
Oh, absolutely. We trade with the Corvette race team often in that, because ours is a street car, there's a race car, there are some things that apply and there are some things that are different in that. But like having the rear quarter inlets, it's something that the race car leverages as well. For us in a street car, it allows us to shorten the plumbing, reduce the amount of fluid that you have in those coolers. So it does help take some weight off the front of the car and put it more strategically over the rear wheels. But no, there's a direct translation with us in the race team, and we look at it as a huge responsibility because we want to give the race team the best starting point we can.
Corvette's been in production for 60 years, so there's a lot of tradition in Corvette. What sort of traditional elements have worked their way into the styling of the C7?
Well, we didn't put too many in there from past generations, and I would tell you there's really only two elements that I would maybe point to. Well, maybe three. We talked about the windshield to side glass. We like blacking out the A-pillar. That tends to give the glass area a neat wraparound look. And then from the interior, we're always looking to minimize those A-pillar sections because we want this panoramic view of the road and that we really don't want any blind spots. And the mirrors themselves are carefully placed for best visibility there too. So within here again, it's a secondary detail, but the blacked out A-pillar and then the side cove. I couldn't imagine doing a new Corvette that didn't have a side cove feature on it. Now, what makes this one a little different is that it does flow functional air, it does relieve underhood pressure, and we do measure a reduction in drag with it. We've got a little more upscale treatment on this in that it's a two-piece part between a molded in color, mesh pattern on the backside, and then a painted carbon flash metallic bezel tend to really play this as a premium part. The third element, and I'm not sure, because we've had single grille inlets on Corvettes before. They've kind of come back since in the 6th generation, now the 7th, because it's a very effective means of taking in air in the front of the car. And that we're no longer taking air under the car, because at these performance levels, that tends to increase lift of the front. And that, so from an architectural element, we've kind of leveraged, like I said, that single port inlet in the grille opening.
So what was your goal in the design of this new C7?
Well, I would tell you our goal going into it was to make the design more compelling, more powerful, but more provocative. We really wanted to lean on some things. We were looking for the front view of the car to be a little bit more aggressive, larger grille opening, just a little bit a little more seriousness to the headlamps. Kind of get a little bit of a snarl to the front. The body side, here again, more dramatic surfacing, bolder, more gestural side cove than what we've seen before. Side coves have been almost vertical on past Corvettes, where this one really leans forward, adding a lot of speed and gesture to the car. And then the back end, we wanted to shake it up and not see the traditional tail lamps going across with the license plate in the middle. So graphically, integrating a plate to the lower diffuser and then giving a whole new treatment to the tail lamps was huge. And then, like I said before, the upper was a big deal too. We really felt we needed a new DLO graphic to define this. So going into that, we had some key goals as to, okay, these are areas that we feel we need to change and make different. We weren't sure how we were going to make them different, but the goal was when we were working with all the designers is to come up with something that we haven't done there before.
Give me just the short part of that where you said DLO graphic and explain what DLO is for the people who don't know.
The DLO graphic is, DLO short for daylight opening, and it's your side glass to quarter glass shape. And within that graphic, that for us in the design arena, that's like your biggest design element. And that, obviously you've got your wheels, your body side, but that DLO or that side, that side glass graphic does a lot to set up the side view of the car. It really tells you, how spatially you're going to break up the lower versus the upper, where things are placed and accented in that. It's a huge starting point.
With the previous car, the C6, you broke away from the hideaway headlights that Corvette has had since 1968. Now you've kind of taken the headlights to the next level. What have you done with these headlights?
Well, these headlamps, what we've done with them is we've interjected LEDs across the board. Now we're starting with a bifunctional HID lamp, whereas before we had two projectors. Now we're down to a single projector. So that's a big win for us for as far as mass and complexity goes. But we've dropped the fog lamp. We've added the DRL and made the DRL the signature appearance item on the front. The DRL is a white LED indirect lamp, and like I said, it also functions as a running lamp for nighttime, but for daytime that's the light you'll see most of the time. Also in the headlamp we've added amber LEDs for the park and turn, and they're basically an edge-lit technology. So within the headlamp we've got a couple different ways of handling the LEDs, and then like I said, a high-level HID projector.
I'm here with Tadge Jeuchter, the Corvette Chief Engineer, and it seems like I've known you forever. How long have you been with the Corvette Group?
Well, next spring it'll be 20 years, basically from the inception of the 5th generation through the 6th generation and now the 7th generation.
Well, this is fantastic, and this is the first Corvette that you're actually presiding over, isn't it?
Well, I felt like I was presiding over the others, although there was my boss was the chief engineer, but I was certainly right at the epicenter of the design, development, and also the final presentation of the vehicle, as well as all of the succession models. Now, it's not just the first year ever, it's all the succeeding models that come after that.
What were your key goals in the design of the C7?
Too numerous to mention, but as we always say, we wanted to take things that were maybe a little weak on the current car, known weaknesses, and turn them into strengths. Strengths relative to not only other sports cars, but to any other vehicle. Then we wanted to take things that the Corvette has been known for a long time, its power, performance, ride and handling, and actually excellent fuel economy and luggage room, and expand that envelope even further.
Well, if we look at let's say the problem areas or the areas where you needed improvement, what were those key areas where you were concentrating?
Well, the biggest one, of course, was the interior. We've focused on power and performance, the handling for years and years and years. Wanted to make a super light, super agile sports car. The interior probably commanded a little less attention and a little fewer resources historically on Corvette than other parts of the car. I would say this 7th generation car is the first fully realized Corvette where every single area of the car got everybody's full attention and wanted to bring it up to world class.
Traditionally, Corvette's been remarkably light for its size and power, and this is certainly true of the C6, and even the C5 was very good. Was that still an ongoing consideration in the C7, and what did you do about it?
Well, we've always prided ourselves on being mass efficient. If you look at V8 rear-wheel drive sports cars around the world, you'll find we are the lightest, if not one of the lightest. We've always been a leader in advanced materials, and we're always seeking in every area of the car to keep pushing that state-of-the-art in advanced materials, and the 7th generation is no exception. We've gone to fully customized, engineered, produced in-house aluminum frame. We've got carbon panels on the exterior, on the roof and hood. For the first time on an entry-level Corvette, we've mixed carbon with glass under the skin to lighten and stiffen some of the structural composite. So pretty much everywhere you look on the car, there's been attention to lightweighting.
Well, when I look at the structure of the car, superficially it looks very similar to the previous Corvette. You've got these long rails running nose to tail on each side. You've got a central tunnel. But then when you start looking at the details, it seems like every piece is different. Tell me about those changes and why you made them.
You're right that every piece is different, and you're right it looks the same from a distance, and the reason for that is that the load paths that are allowed based on the packaging are essentially the same. People haven't gotten any smaller, you still have to have the occupant space for them. The engine still sits in the front and takes up a certain amount of space. The chassis and suspension parts, likewise. The engine, the fuel tank, the transmission, all that stuff, including space that you want to preserve for the customer for luggage, all that takes up a defined amount of space. You must put the structure in the space that's left over, and that's why basically the skin of the structure looks like it occupies that same volume. But none of the tools, none of the parts are shared from either the current steel frame car or the current aluminum frame car. Every single aspect of that aluminum frame has been customized for open air stiffness at a very low mass. As a result, this aluminum frame is 45 kilos lighter than the steel frame of today and almost 60% stiffer, which you can feel every time you drive it.
Now, how do you manage to put an aluminum frame even in the base car? Because with the previous generation car, the aluminum frame only came with Z06 and ZR1, the high-end expensive cars, and clearly it's an expensive technology. How'd you do it in the base car?
Well, you're right. Aluminum costs quite a bit more than steel. It's a premium material. It requires premium techniques to fasten the parts together. Bringing it in-house helps us so we can control the manufacturing costs. There's been a lot of integration of parts. If you look at what we call the suspension nodes, the hollow castings for the front and rear suspension, you'll notice that compared to today's vehicle where you have a lot of individual stampings welded together, you have a single hollow casting that includes a lot of those different functions, and that saves money overall. But the bottom line is it does cost more to make it out of aluminum and steel, and you see that on cars around the world. Doesn't matter if they're sports cars or not. Typically, if they have aluminum intensive construction, they're a lot more expensive. So we've worked on other areas and working with our suppliers to drive costs down so that we don't have to command a higher price for the car.
You mentioned a few carbon fiber pieces. That's another material that we all know is terrific. It's strong, it's rigid, and it's very light, but it tends to be a little pricey. What kind of breakthroughs have occurred there that lets you use carbon fiber in a car like the Corvette?
A little pricey is an understatement. Carbon fiber is spectacularly expensive. The good news is that the price is coming down. Working with our supplier, we've dropped it to the point where it's just affordable on the base car. It's still about 5 times the cost of an equivalent fiberglass panel, but it is about 1/3 the weight. So it does save a lot of weight. We're going to continue to work on that, trying to drive the volume up on carbon fiber so that the efficiencies and the costs go down, so we can continue to offer it on more panels on the Corvette and, frankly, more cars in General Motors.
Do your customers really appreciate this weight reduction from the technology aspect, or do they appreciate what weight reduction does for you?
Well, of course, they appreciate both. They love bragging to their friends. On today's car, we do some carbon panels, and people love to show them off. They like to show how light they are. In very expensive cars, we'll actually use the classic woven carbon and polish it so you can see it. That adds another whole layer of cost on top of the actual material itself. So customers really like that look. They know it's aerospace, they know it's racing, they really appreciate that technology on the car. And then, of course, the way it contributes to the driving experience, they get to enjoy that every day.
Corvette's now been in production for about 60 years. Did the tradition of the Corvette figure much into the design and engineering of the C7?
Well, we're always very knowledgeable and proud of our heritage, and we try to respect that in every way that we can. At the same time, we can't be tied to it in ways that hold us back. So we try not to do a retro car. We've never done a retro Corvette. We just don't think that's a good way forward. We always try to advance, make it a Corvette, respect our history, but advance it in every way we can. And that includes use of materials, but also in the appearance of the car, interior and exterior. Want to use advanced technologies to make the driving experience better, but also make the vehicle look different in ways that support the performance.
In the design of the C7, were you trying to produce a car that was more attractive to maybe a customer body you haven't reached very strongly, for example, European sports car buyers?
I don't know that we could say that Europeans as a group or any particular set of buyers has a particular look that they're going for, because you'll see cars with a wide variety of appearances or design languages appeal to different people. So I don't think it's necessarily just the look. I think it's the whole portfolio of interior look, exterior look, the way the car feels when it drives, the menu of technologies, the features offered. All of that goes together into creating an impression of a product. And I think just the better you can make that impression, the more likely it is you're going to appeal to more people.
Is this Corvette been engineered to be sold around the world right from the get-go?
Absolutely. The last few generations of Corvettes have been designed to be global vehicles. So we intend to sell them in essentially every market in which they're legal. And that means essentially every market that permits the steering wheel to be on the left side. So we're not putting the steering wheel on the right side. So any market that will have us with the steering wheel on that side, we've engineered to meet the requirements in that market.
With the C6, what percentage of your sales were overseas? Roughly?
Roughly 10 to 15%.
So that's a useful increment to the relatively small volume you have on Corvette.
Yeah, that's helps the bottom line, and we want to be a global car. We want to actually try to work to build our global reputation, and the C5 and C6 did that. I think actually the aluminum construction, which I think started in Europe, will be another step in that direction. I think the Europeans will appreciate the efforts on low mass materials with the aluminum and the carbon fiber. Some folks over there may sit up and take notice and say, hey, wait a second, that Corvette, that's got a pretty premium bill of materials on it, something you'd expect out of a lot more expensive high-end car, and something that's really in keeping with the latest technology.
Traditionally, Corvettes have almost always delivered on the performance numbers. They've gone fast, they've delivered the lateral Gs, they've even delivered the good lap times. They've maybe been lacking a little bit in just the feel and sort of the way in which they deliver that performance. How did solving that problem figure in the design of the C7?
Well, you've put your finger on what has been, I won't call it a weakness, but not necessarily a strength of the car. It's the perceived way that the vehicle goes about. You know, it's maybe a sledgehammer. It does everything kind of with brute force. Monster tires and giant engine and, you know, maybe a little bit of brute force as opposed to finesse. So we've spent a lot of time thinking about, from the driver's seat, what does finesse really mean in terms of what tactile feedback do you get from the controls? What is the effort of the steering wheel, the pedals, the brakes? What's the right proportional response? Even though the car is very light, it's perceived as being heavy in some way because of that kind of manhandling way it goes about its business. So we put a lot of effort into kind of those tuning elements so that you not only is the car light, but it actually feels light to drive.
Is the small steering wheel and the new seat part of that program?
Absolutely. The small steering wheel makes the car feel smaller and more responsive. The seat makes you feel more connected to the vehicle so you can feel its every move. We've done a lot of work to move the mass rearward, improve the weight distribution so the car turns in better. We now have an electronic limited slip differential, and when you open the diff, the front end can turn in much quicker. And so what was previously perceived as a sluggishness because we had a big V8 up there wasn't really true. Our engine is extremely light, but it was perceived that way because we had a constant split coefficient diff. Now that we can open the diff, when you turn the wheel, there's no resistance from the back wheels and the car turns in really quickly.
What about the ability of the Corvette to just cruise effortlessly? I mean, the current car, it's got giant trunk, it gets great mileage on the highway, it's pretty comfortable. Is that one of the strengths you wanted to keep with the new car?
Absolutely. And if you ask people in a survey, why do they buy sports cars? The things you mentioned, fuel economy, luggage room, those don't figure in reasons for purchase. But the people who've purchased and lived with a Corvette have gotten spoiled by those attributes. They like being able to take all that stuff on a trip with them. So we felt like even though it might not be high on a clinic worksheet, we had to keep that for the customers. And so the trunk room on this Corvette continues with its class-leading standards, so customers can use that luggage room. And also the long-term comfort. You know, it's a car you can sit in all day and cruise effortlessly. Yeah, the car handles really good, but it doesn't have to beat you up to do that.
Over 40 years ago, we saw a mid-engine concept Corvette, and we saw a few others come after that. Yet here we are with the C7, still a front-engine car. Did you consider a mid-engine alternative?
I think every generation except for the first generation, a mid-engine design was considered, and the seventh generation was no exception. We did look at an architecture around a mid-engine and found that it didn't have the good balance of all the attributes that we wanted, that our customers have really come to appreciate over the years. We're going to continue to look at that over far past my time on Corvette. I'm sure it'll be looked at from time to time, so it's always in the back of our mind. We ultimately want to make the best car for the customer. I don't think the Corvette necessarily means engine in front. You know, even though that's been the decision we've made through 7 generations, our minds are open to, if we could figure out a solution that gets all the attributes that we like about this car and a performance benefit, we would go mid-engine. But it's only when it makes a better car, not because we think it would be cool, not because we think it would make us more like some of the exotics. It has to have that good balance of all the attributes.
I know you can't reveal too much about advanced information. You probably haven't even made these decisions, but if one were to guess what the new car will cost and what body styles it might come in, would looking at the existing C6 give you a reasonable guide in that direction?
Well, you could look at C5 or you could look at C6 and even all the way back to C4. You can see our pattern of introducing entry-level coupe and then doing convertible and higher performance variants after that.
And what about pricing of this car? I mean, just in general terms, is it going to be in the ballpark of the current car?
Yes, our whole business case is formulated around a similar price point. So even though we've added a lot of content to the vehicle, we fully expect that if you can afford a current C6, you'll be able to afford a C7.
Terrific. Thanks very much. I look forward to driving it.
I think you'll enjoy it.
Hey, I'm Harlan Charles, Corvette Product Manager from Chevrolet.
What do Corvette customers expect from the new C7?
Corvette, what do they expect? Well, I think our customers expect a performance upgrade. They expect us to use the latest technology, and our customers know that we use Corvette racing technology. We've showed how we make that track-to-street transfer, and I think they're going to expect more of that. And I think they're going to expect a beautiful, well-executed cars. And our customers have told us that they want a no-excuses car. They want everything to the highest level. It's not enough anymore just to hit the numbers, to hit the performance numbers, which we're going to do, and always improve the performance. But it's about the things you can't measure. It's about the way the car feels, the way the car makes you feel when you're driving it, the attention to detail, the ride, the handling, but the things that may not be ever measured on a stopwatch is the things that we want to improve on this Corvette, and our customers have told us to do that.
What particular areas of improvement did your customers want compared with the C6?
Well, one of the things that we know the customers wanted, one of the things we focused on is the seats. Let's just use that as an example. What we've done is, we know we have a lot of different customers out there for sports cars, so we divided it into two seat options. We have a GT seat, which is your seat that is optimized for street driving. It can accommodate a lot of shapes and sizes. And then for the hardcore track enthusiasts, we have a new competition sports seat. And that seat, again, more aggressive, may not be for everybody, but for those that want to experience the Corvette in a track environment or prefer a more supportive seat, we have that also.
How many of your customers actually take their Corvettes to the track? Is that a big percentage, or is that sort of an opinion leader crowd, or how do they figure in?
It actually is a bigger percentage. The amount of customers that take our Corvettes to the track is actually a bigger percentage than you might think. We do studies in that, and there's different ranges. There's ones that, now maybe not everybody is a track everyday type of person, but the majority of Corvette drivers will take or have the intention to take their Corvette to the track one time to really experience what the Corvette is like on the track. Because the way to experience the performance, you really have to. You know, the limits of performance have expanded so much, you really can't experience it on the street. So we hear that even those that haven't been to the track yet, they want to take the car to the track. So they expect the car to be able to perform well on the track, even if they never intend to do it.
The C5 and C6 kind of brought the Corvette into the modern age. In the process, did those cars change the customer base, and is that something you're going to continue to seek with the C7?
Yeah, our customer base changes every time we launch a new Corvette, and actually the benefit of the new car is beyond just all the new things we've done to the new car. The other benefit of launching a new car is to be able to tell a new audience how special the car is. You get a chance to get a lot of attention. And one of the things, maybe we've been guilty of our own success. We've had times where we can't build another Corvette if we wanted to, and maybe we haven't marketed. So there's a new audience, maybe a new generation that doesn't know how special the Corvette is, how great a performance car it is. And then with the changes we've done to the car, raising the level of refinement and sophistication and technology in the car, we feel we can attract a new audience with this new 7th generation Corvette.
Well, what new audience would you be going for with the C7 Corvette?
The audience we'll be going for with the new 7th generation Corvette is not only our traditional Corvette enthusiasts, but we want to go after people that study sports cars, people who are enthusiasts, people that do the homework to know what sports car is the best. They may not be so brand loyal right now, so they'll do their homework, they'll learn about the car, how it is racing derived technology, its performance numbers, its level of sophistication that we have now, the electronics in the car. Really want a customer that's informed, a customer that knows better, that's not just searching for the best badge, but is searching for the best sports car. And it could be at any price. The nice thing about Corvettes is, yes, they are maybe more attainable to a bigger audience than some of our competitors, but we don't want that to be a barrier anymore. There's no excuses. We want people who can afford anything to choose the Corvette because it is the best.
Traditionally, Corvette's been sold overwhelmingly in America, and that's been the primary market. Are you seeking out more markets around the world?
Yes, the Corvette is a global icon. It's, as Chevrolet has expanded in the last few years, as you know, the Chevrolet brand, a full line of Chevrolet cars and trucks are now being sold throughout the world. You know, Europe has Chevrolet dealers now, China, things like that. So we want to expand, use the Corvette as a halo for the Chevrolet lineup in total, and then also sports car enthusiasts around the world. Europe is the biggest sports car market in the world. So we want to have a sports car that can be competitive in all these markets. So we feel that a lot of the improvements we've made to the car will make the car more appealing worldwide. And then we are, in other countries, you get a more upscale, you know, obviously sports cars are more expensive in other countries, taxes, things like that. So the car, again, can have no excuses, and we intend to provide a sports car that will meet their requirements.
A lot of car manufacturers claim that their sports cars use race-derived technology. How do you intend to drive that message home to customers with the C7?
Yeah, I think the key thing about the Corvette and using racing technology is you can see it in the car. When you look at the exterior of the car, a lot of people may think, oh, here the vents on the car, they look cool, or we did them because they look cool. But you can see, if you look at the Corvette race car, you can see the direct influence from track to street, how these are devices that help reduce the lift of the car or increase cooling to the transmission or the axle of the car. The brakes, the way we've scored the brakes is from learning from the race car. So there's visual things that the customer can immediately see, and when looking at the car, about racing. And if they follow Corvette racing, knowing that we did win the ALMS championship for 2012, beating Ferrari, Porsche, BMW, beating the best in the world, taking them on with our sports car, I think people who have appreciation for that will know that the ultimate proof point of a sports car is how we do in the endurance racing.
I guess that means that we might see more of those ads featuring the car on the Nordschleife showing what it can do?
Yeah, I think you know, we intend to go back and test the new car there. We're doing some testing as we speak right now in Virginia Raceway and Road Atlanta. So it is a big part of the Corvette is how it performs in the track. So yes, it would be the easy answer.